Hello Android developers, welcome back. In this video we are going to continue talking about list views, but now we are actually going to learn how to create our own custom list views. As you can see here, we have a very simple app we are going to be building. Displays book titles. As you can see here, there's The Alchemist, The Giver, How to Kill a Mockingbird, The Complete Android and Java Developer, and so forth. You notice again, we have customized the way things look here. We have to the left, we have this image here, we have the title of the book, we have the author name and how many pages, and just for fun we put this arrow here. When you click on it, the color changes, and also it tells you where the position of the item just clicked. Okay, you can scroll up and down and show all of these different books. All right, so let's get to it. Now, the first thing we're going to do, of course, open up our Android Studio. I'm going to go ahead and say File, New Project, and we're going to say my custom list view. Hit Next, and that's all good there. Go Next. Blank is fine. Next. And Next. All right, here we are. So let's go ahead and get rid of our hello world. Let's get rid of this. That's fine. And now let's go ahead and say list view. There it is. Let's go ahead and say field parent. And for the next one, it's like wrap content. That's all good. Let's give it an ID. So I say ID here, enter ID. Let's give it a ID of list. That looks great. Actually, that's list here. Perfect. And also while we're here, let's give a divider. Let's give it a color of, let's say FF7A B59C. Are not able to see anything here because remember we actually have to give it a height. Let's give it a height of 1 dp, and we should see here to the right, there it is. So that looks good. Perfect. Now, in order to achieve what we want to achieve, which is something like this, right? To where when you click, there's that background color that has a gradient. There's a few things we need to do. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and create a gradient background. Now this gradient background is going to be created here in our drawables because we're going to be referencing it as a drawable when we write our code. So what are we going to do? We can say new drawable resource gradient BG, short for background, and hit OK. There it is. Let's change the selector to shape. So let's change that. The reason why we're doing that because we can actually put a gradient inside here, right? So the other thing we're going to go ahead and do here, this shape, we're going to say Android shape. We're going to call it a rectangle because the shape we're going to try to create here as our gradient is going to be a rectangle. Perfect. Now let's start and say gradient. So there's our gradient there. Inside here we can say put a start color. So a start color as a gradient, of course you have to have a start color, center color, and end color. In this case our gradient will have different color shades changing throughout the length of our rectangle. The start color we want here, we can say then F1, let's say F2. Again, these colors I know because I've looked them up. So, and as you can see right away here, as we put the start color, things are changing. You can see a little gradient going on here, right? That's wonderful. The next is going to be a center color. So we can center, you enter. We can say we want, say E7, E8. And we say now our end color, let's give it CF. And the last thing we have to put here as our properties has to be the angle. So the angle is going to be, let's put it 270. Save that. So we are done with this for now. And the next thing we have to go and do, create our gradient background hover. So our gradient background hover is the color that will appear when you hover over or when you click. So let's do the same thing here. Let's go to drawable, new, let's hit drawable here, and we're gonna call this gradient background hover. Okay, so go next. Okay, here, perfect. We're gonna go the same thing. We're gonna call shape, finish that with shape. Excellent. And inside here we want this to be, of course, a rectangle again, so we say shape is rectangle. There it is. And essentially we're gonna go do the same thing. We're gonna say now gradient, and we can say start color. I'm gonna say FF50 E552. All right, and we can now stay center color. We do the same thing here, FF18 DB34. Okay, and we're gonna go ahead and call and color. Let's say it's FF88 B983. Okay, let's finalize with the angle. Let's say 270 degrees. Okay, let's close that out. Let's save. And you can see clearly here, a start color is a strong green, and as the center color, a little bit stronger, but then the end color here, as you can see, is a little bit lighter. Doing great. Save that. Let's get rid of that. And the next thing we're gonna go ahead and do is we are going to create our list selector. Okay, so we do the same thing. Go right click, new, drawable resource. I'm gonna call this list selector, which is gonna be actually the background of our list view. We will see in a bit here. So enter, we're gonna call this, and inside of our selector we're gonna put items. So we say item, and for each item we have a few properties. We can say the state selected. So the state selected is a boolean, meaning you could either enter false or true. Okay, so the first state we're gonna call false, and we can also specify, say, state pressed, same thing, false. All right, and now in this state where selected is false, meaning nobody has selected any item yet, and state pressed is also false, the same thing, meaning nobody has pressed anything. So we want to assign a background for that case, right, for that state. So what we say drawable. So we're actually accessing our drawable folder. So we go to drawable, as you can see there, and go and fetch the gradient background that we have created here. All this means here is that if the user hasn't selected anything, we just want to show this gradient background, which is this white color here. Excellent. Now let's create another item here. In this item, we can say state pressed. We want it to be true. We want it to say yes, the user has pressed the item, the list item or the list row. What we want to do, we want to make sure that we show a different background. In this case, we say drawable, and we then say gradient background hover, which we have stated we have created here. So we want when they click on it, this color shows. All right, excellent. Now let's put another item here. So say item. Now in this case, we can say state selected. We want to make it true. And we can say then state pressed true. So drawable. Let's go drawable, and we can say gradient. So as you can see, these two are essentially the same. It's just that in this case here, we added the state pressed. Now let's go back and take a look. Now, since we're here now, we have created all of our drawables here, or all of our gradients and so forth. We can now go ahead and call the selected here. the list selected. Now we want to go ahead and call list selector. So let me explain what's happening here. We created these drawables here, gradient background hover, and everything, right? And we've also created the list selector, which if you look closely, it takes in the background, the gradient background we've created earlier, and also takes in the gradient background hover, so that we can then call in our list view, we can say list selector, meaning that when it's selected, we want that background, depending on which state this list view is currently on, we're going to change the colors. If a user clicks on let's say item 1, then we're going to change the color depending on what we have specified here. So if it's not pressed or selected, this is the gradient background that's going to be called to show, so it's going to be this color. Otherwise, if it's selected or pressed, then we're going to have this other gradient background hover color. And this will make a lot of most sense once we put everything together. Now it may be a little bit confusing, but just bear with me here. Now what we have to do is to go ahead and create the actual list view, the actual list row we're going to show. So essentially what we need to go and create now is this each row. For our layout, right click, go new, layout resource file. We want this to be relative layout. And we're going to call this list row. Okay, and there it is. So let's go to our text here, and you can go Command Alt or Option and then L to format everything so that everything looks great. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do here in our relative layout, let's go ahead and change this to fill parent, and this to wrap content here. And in the background, let's go ahead and say background, and go ahead into drawables and go and get our list selector, the one we specified we created here. You see, list selector, which is this one here. Let's go ahead and change the orientation of our relative layout. We want our orientation to be horizontal. So we can go ahead and say Android orientation horizontal. There it is. Perfect. Let's give it a little bit of padding too. Let's say padding. Let's give it 5 dp. Create a linear layout. So let's go say wrap content there. So this here will, inside of this linear layout, we're gonna go ahead and have our, if you recall here, this is where our image, this image is gonna be located. So inside here, we're gonna go ahead and give it an ID. Let's go ID. Let's call it thumbnail. Let's give it a thumbnail ID, and let's give it padding of 3 dp. Okay, we want to make sure this layout is to the left of the parent layout, which is the relative layout. So the way we do this, we just say layout align parent left to be true. And let's give it a little background. So we can say background, a little color, let's say FFEEEADE. All right, that works. And let's give it a little margin. So let's say layout margin to margin right of 5 dp. And inside now, we're gonna go ahead and put our image view. So we can say image view. So we can say wrap content, or rather, let's go ahead and just keep it a defined width and height of 50 dp. That way we have a little bit more control. And as you can see, things are changing here, right? And let's go ahead for now, give it an image. We can see that's just a placeholder image. Obviously, it's not going to be there forever. Excellent. So we have that. Let's go ahead now outside of our linear layout here. Let's go ahead and create our text view where we're going to have the author name. So text view. wrap content. Let's give it an ID. I'll call it title. Say Android. Align top of our thumbnail. So we want to make sure to align at the top of our thumbnail, which is the linear layout here. So let's copy that and paste here. Perfect. So, and then we're gonna make sure, let's give it a text. That way we can see where things are. Let's see, the alchemist. There we go. That's perfect. That's not necessarily where we want it to be, but we're gonna change that pretty soon here. Let's give it text size to be 14 dp, 14 sp. Let's give it text style to be bold. All right, and then let's give a text color of say 0405 040404. Let's then move this a little bit to the right. Okay, so what we do, how we do that, we can say layout to right of, give an ID, of course, thumbnail. Again, because we want it to be to the right of our thumbnail layout. So, and there it is. You can see it moved. Here at the bottom, we're going to go ahead and create another text view. It'll be wrap content, and this, let's give an ID of author. And let's make sure it's below our title here. So we can say below, we can say title, right? So let's give it a little text here so that we can see. Paulo Coelho. We want text. We don't want text color. We want text, just text. All right, say Paulo Coelho. Very nice. And you can see it's right to the left here. We're going to change that. So we can then say layout margin. Layout margin top. We want to say, let's give it 2 dp, and we want to say layout to right of, want to be the right of thumbnail again. So as you can see here to the right of this thumbnail linear layout. Okay, so things will start looking good here. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you can start seeing. As you can see there, let's create our pages. We're gonna have a pages numbers here. Okay, so let's go ahead and another text view here. So text view, wrap content. Let's give it an ID. I'm gonna call this pages. It's fine. Let's give a text so we can see. Let's go to 4 pages. And before we forget, let's give it a text color here. Text color. It's gonna be, let's get 10. Actually, we can change it to something. Let's change to something a little bit more exciting, perhaps. How about that color? Okay, that works. Okay, you can play around with that. That's all. That's fine. All right, so we have that. Let's make sure we center pages text view correctly. So we want it to be around here. Okay, so let's go ahead and say then, let's say Android align parent top. So true. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and say layout align title. Let's give it a layout margin right of say about 10 dp. Let's give it text style. The text style, let's make it bold. And we're having issues. We're not rendering because we need to change something here. It says might start with 2, 3, 4 on pages. Oh, again, you probably noticed that. Nice. All right, that's text. There we go. Okay, that's why it wasn't rendering. Okay, excellent. So we have this. We want to make sure it goes all the way to the right here. So to get this all the way to the right, let's give it a gravity. Let's say then gravity. And let's make sure that this is actually align parent right to be true. Oh, there we go. So you can see now it's all the way to the right where we want it to be. Perfect. Now let's give it, put another little arrow here. So we can say then image view wrap content. Let's go ahead and give a source. Let's go to our Android and say drawable, and let's go say IC media play. Okay. Now this, I don't recommend you doing this, access resource files or drawables in this case directly from our Android framework, because it's very risky, because sometimes you may not, your app may be running on that may have different icons. So it's always recommended to actually go ahead and copy these icons, these images, resources into your project, right? And then access that way. But for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and call this from our Android framework. Okay. Let's say then align. We want to align parent right. Let's find align parent right. There we go, to be true. Save, and you can see right away it goes to the right. And let's make sure that layout center vertical is true. It's a little bit down here. All right. Now for our pages, let's give it a little bit of color for our pages here. Let's go ahead and say text color. What color should we give? Let's give it, say, pound 10 BCC 9. How about that? Okay, that looks. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. We are pretty much done with our row. So this is what we're going to be using in our code, in our Java code, to inflate, to take this and make it into a view that you can then put in a list view and create our custom view. All right. So this video has gone a little bit too long, but that's okay. One thing I just want you to go ahead and do until next time is look through this code, XML code that we have written, right? And go over it. And if you need to, repeat this video so that you can understand what we've done here. But in a nutshell, it's very simple. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts. I understand that, but it's fine. Just go ahead and review yourself and make sure you understand what's happening here. All right, so I'll see you in the next video where we will then tie everything together and create our custom view from this. All right, see you in the next video.